Hello, I'm Neil Driver from Davis Grant, and today I'm talking to you about succession planning, and in particular, the process of succession planning. Whilst your plan will vary depending upon your time frame and the industry that you're in, and who's taking over, there's some basic principles to ensure that you manage the applicable risks and achieve the great outcome for you. It's important to look at and identify the steps or projects that will be particularly relevant for your situation and journey, and plan for when those need to be completed before you exit. So I'll go through those stage by stage, and there's quite a lot of steps to get through. First one is to get thinking about the business, where it is now, and where you want it to be when you exit. And all this will feed into your initial 12-month succession planning, succession plan. So first step within that timescale is to identify your goals, both personal and business. They tend to piggyback onto each other, and you need to identify what it is you want out of the business for your life, and what you intend to do after you've exited. Next, you've got to look at or revisit your vision for the business, and plan for how you'll get your team on board to realizing that vision. It's important to meet with essential advisors and to get independent advice on a range of issues. It's very difficult to do succession planning all on your own. After that, number 4 will be to identify factors that are outside of your control that could influence your plan. For example, changing marketplace trends, recession coming in. You couldn't have foreseen COVID, but those have got in the way of various succession plans. But it's important within the process to identify what those factors may be and kind of think out of the box. Next step is to go through the various succession options for your business and how you can cater for them. Internal sale, external sale, family, different phasing down of retirement. All these are different options to look for. And once you've been through that, it's time to think about the individuals, the potential successors, or if you haven't got anybody in mind, the profile, the type of person you need your successor to be. And then build in your timeline. I hope you can see how these have got a logical basis and one thing follows the other. Build in the timeline. What age do you want to retire at? What do you want to be doing? Work backwards from that time scale of the end game when you want to be out, then establish what you've got to do in order to achieve what it is you want to achieve within that time scale. And once you've got all that done, which is a fair amount of work, you can then really create your succession plan. If you haven't got those steps in place first, then when you do put your succession plan down, and it's important to write it, you've got to have this done for an effective plan. We've got a succession plan template to use that ensures you captures your goals and actions in order to achieve all of the things you want to do. It's important that you document your plan, the same as a business plan, and that it's accessible, that it means something to you, that you can attach something to it, and you can refer to it and update it as necessary throughout the process. But if it isn't written down, it really has been said that it doesn't exist. After that, we can go on to stage 2 of the process. Once you've got your plan written down. Again, not all steps are relevant to every business, but it forms a general guide of what certain actions should be taken. And it's important to establish a process that works just for your business. Nothing fits everything, and all of this stuff is to be adapted to your particular circumstances. So now that you've got a plan, it's time to consider all of the opportunities or vulnerabilities that you've got to get through to get your business in the best shape for sale. So we're at the stage where you've identified the plan, and now you've got to really look at the business. So first step we would suggest is check your organization structure. Make sure that you get that right. Getting the organization structure right is really, really crucial. Defining roles and responsibilities within the organization, that will improve efficiency, improve team engagement, and make sure that the business is more attractive to a buyer, whether that's whoever that might be, and is more attractive on paper. You should really consider how many hats you're wearing. Business owners tend to wear many hats, and replacement people can't always do that, don't always have the skills. And you've really got to consider how much time that you have to work on the business for this process, as well as running the business, because planning for exit takes a lot of time. And if you don't create that time by getting the business structure right, you won't be able to deal with it properly. So you can kind of do your own due diligence. Due diligence is a process that businesses go through when there's an external sale or any sale. And if you do your internal due diligence and look at all kinds of sectors within the business, you'll be able to identify and mitigate risks that exist in the business. Skeletons in the closet, you probably know what they are, before a potential buyer comes in and does the same thing. Again, there's due diligence checklists out there, but if you run through that, they can be very complex and need a lot of documentation. So an internal due diligence process will actually help you pull together documentation over what can be many years on key items, and be prepared for the questions and have dealt with some of the issues that will come up when you have an external due diligence. So next up, you can get a reality test, get a value on the business. Some people might do this right at the beginning, but until you've put certain other processes in place, got the organization structure right, thought about it properly, that could diminish the value an external person will bring onto the business. So it'll highlight, when you have it done properly, it'll highlight either a gap between your expectations or give you a nice bonus if it's more than you're expecting it to be. But it's important to get it done and done properly so that you know where you are. Next thing is really depending upon the type of business, what can you do to build up the value of the business before selling it? So looking at all elements of grooming the business to increase value. Financial forecasting is always important, but looking at your KPIs is essential, seeing what really drives the business forward, understanding it, because that's what will happen on a sale, and any purchaser will want to know how they can drive the business forward and maximize the value that they're getting. So working on your KPIs is essential to keep you on track and achieve your financial goals. And concentrating on that will allow you to paint the picture for your successor of the value they will get going forward. Following on for that, you might want to have a look at restructuring or reviewing how your organization is set up. So once you've been through those processes, you're likely to identify areas which have got to be restructured or changed. And now is the time to do those so that everything is tidied up and sorted out before sale. And again, you can maximize value by doing that. You'll need to have a good look at your balance sheet and see what assets you're going to include in the sale, because it is possible to move things around and tidy it up. And you need to speak to your accountant about that in doing so. And at the same time, see what you can do to reduce liabilities and protect your assets. Think about things like personal guarantees for loans and leases, and whether you can be released, whether you want to get out, and what's going to happen to replace them when you go. So on a more personal level, you should be looking at your will and insurance policies, and make sure that those are reflecting the changes that you're working towards. Look, if you're going to exit and you've got someone in mind internally, what's the cost of getting them replaced with key man insurance, and so on. All factors to build in to what it is you're doing. And if the company's paying for some insurances for you, how much is that going to cost you when that stops? Of course, tax planning is ultimately important at this stage. And you've really got to think about what the tax cost is going to be for your exit, and the options you've got within that. Of course, you've got to seek professional advice, speak to us about the various tax options and planning, and you can bring that in at this stage of the process so that you know what the tax implications of the sale will be. And there may be other opportunities to enhance the perception of the value of your business. For example, branding, marketing, all kinds of other elements. Make sure that you bring those in to this process of the plan. The last, towards the end of the points to address, if you're not transferring ownership to the family or an employee or management team, once you've got all this in stage, it's probably around the right time to take your market to business. And you've really got to think about how to do that, whether you're going to use an agent, how you're going to do it. We can help you consider the most suitable options for doing that. If appropriate, we could help you filter inquiries and help with everything that you've got within the process. You really do need to think about the assistance of a third party, someone impartial, to filter out the buyers that you can bounce things off, and act as a neutral buffer between you and your successor, if it's internal or external, to reduce the stress and achieve a better outcome. And that can be a mixture between accountants and solicitors, whoever it is. But having a third party in that process is well worth the investment and helps reduce the stress of the process. So once you've received an offer, then you start to get into all the legals, got to agree heads of terms, and you're going to start to go through proper sale and purchase agreement and all the documentation. That process can be quite long, as within the documentation, often elements come up that aren't addressed earlier on. And when more people start to look at it in depth, there's different scenarios that pop out. So make sure that you've got a great accountant and legal team behind you to protect you within that documentation, because it's really fundamental as to what goes on. And as well as the sale and purchase agreement, you can have service agreements for any ongoing services that you're going to have, and within that you'll have to negotiate your time and all kinds of other details. So make sure you go through that process properly and bring all the issues that you've got to the attention of your advisors. It's just important. Sometimes I've seen it where clients don't always read the documentation properly. It can be very laborious, it can be very hard, but ultimately that is the thing that is binding you, and that is the thing that is giving you your value at the end of the day. So it's important to get your head into that properly. And then afterwards, once it's all signed up and done, there'll be post-settlement transition, which is kind of the phasing out and what it is you're going to be doing after the sale. And that needs to be agreed before the documentation is all done. And it's kind of like looking right at the very end to make sure that you get that all properly agreed beforehand. So that everybody knows what to agree within the whole transaction process. So those are most of the stages within a succession process. There's a lot there. I've been through it fairly quickly. Hope that's been of help. And if you need any more assistance or explanations on this, please do get in touch.